Welcome to the Hogsty with your crew, Adam Terrassi, Alex Zeese, Sean Conti, and Steve Thomas. And now, here's your host, Sean Conti.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. As we steamroll through the off-season dead zone here, in the spirit of Doug Williams' new promotion with the team, we've done some reshuffling here in the Hogsty front office. So I'd like to welcome you, Steve, Defensive Podcast Quality Control. How are you, Steve?
I'm so excited about my new title. It's the job I've always wanted. It's really my dream job. I'm so excited about the future and the pay raise that came along with this job, more importantly, because it was a lot, trust me.
We will have to talk about that pay raise later. If you think that's a good title, then wait till you hear Alex, because Alex is the new czar of streams and community outreach. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Well, let me tell you, I'm really honored for this. I feel like the luckiest man in the world. And here's what's going to happen is Steve's going to run his hallway there, and I'm going to run my hallway in the, Tsar castle here. So we'll be in good shape.
It's a tale of two titans here. Okay. Well, hold the phone, everybody, because we got Jamal. He is the Junior Senior Deputy Coordinator of Podcast Personnel. So welcome to the show, Jamal.
Glad you got that title right, buddy. Make sure it's always correct when you,
it's a tongue twister.
When you say it, man. But nah, man.
Yeah, and we.
Oh, go ahead.
I like it. No, I was gonna say we have to refer to you that way the entire show. Yeah. That's the rule we're making.
I need to write that down real quick. Then what was it? Junior, Senior, Deputy,
Vice
say
it again,
Deputy
Sean,
Coordinator.
I don't got it right now, but you do.
Did you get a title, Sean, yourself, or are you just host?
I'm just Sean.
You didn't get promoted at all.
That's it. It's all good. There's no other way you could explain it. Yeah, so Junior Senior Deputy Coordinator of Podcast Personnel, Jamal. This is actually a very appropriate title to be given you today because we had some reshuffling in the front office, yes, that had to do with some personnel positions. So maybe we should just jump right on into talking about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do that.
What happened in the front office this week?
Well, how do we explain it?
Nothing.
Not much happened. A bunch of people got new titles. The structure of the team is the same, essentially, and that's all that needs to be said. No, it's a little bit more than that. I mean, the bottom line is Bruce Allen is still the team president, and for those of you who hate Bruce Allen, you're going to still be unhappy and still be upset about it. Doug Williams steps into the Scott McLuhan role without the title of general manager. Doug Williams is the director of
player personnel.
Director of player personnel, yeah.
Or vice
president
of player personnel or something like that.
So
vice
we got to get the titles right.
He's the new Scott McLuhan.
Right.
I think we got to start there. I've got a bunch of data for you guys, but I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on Doug Williams' promotion first. Let's just talk generally. What do you guys think?
Well, I would say I am skeptical that this means anything. I think it's great that Doug Williams is involved in the team. He has been now for at least a year or two. How long has it been that Doug Williams has been engaged with the team?
2013.
Yeah, about to say
3
about
years
4
now.
13?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
So there you go, 4 years. Love his involvement. Don't think this is really going to mean anything significantly. And I hate to be a downer here, but we know sort of the front office, how it goes in this front office. People with player personnel titles, they may or may not really be dealing directly with players. It's probably more of a scouting sort of position in my mind, or something like that. I doubt it's going to be a get your hands dirty, really dealing with the players. So hate to be a downer there, but doubt it really means anything. Love to know what you guys think.
Jamal, do you have thoughts? Because I got a whole sermon I'm going to do.
I'll be quick.
I have one too.
All right, so yeah, essentially, I do think in terms of Doug himself, I'm happy for Doug. I'm glad he was able to get that promotion. I mean, what I feel personally, I think the biggest thing is my overall thoughts is I don't think much has changed. I think we have known what the structure was going to be like for some time now, maybe since March. So I don't really think that much has changed in terms of who would be doing what. I think everybody will have a lot of input, or a few people will have the majority of the input. And I'm talking about, Bruce, Dan, not Dan, Bruce, Jay. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name. Yeah, Jay, Bruce.
The coach.
Yeah, the head
coach.
The head coach of the team. And then, what's his name? Doug. So I think those are the three that'll be the majority that I'm speaking of. But nothing much has changed. We've known what was going on for some time now. So happy for
I'm
Doug.
totally
We'll
with
see
you
how,
on that.
we'll see how it unfolds to this point, but we'll see.
I've got a sermon too, Alex. So you go ahead.
All right. Well, let me just hit my bullet points, and I think you guys are being a little too pessimistic because of the Bruce Allen thing. I love Doug Williams for this position. I like a lot about him, his background. Even if you were just say, well, he was an ex-Redskin, so that buys him some breathing room with Dan Snyder, who's not going to fire a legend. It buys some street cred with the press because he's going to be an African-American GM, which they have been saying, they want to see more of. Even if you put that stuff aside, here's what I love. This guy has a chip on his shoulder just like Jay Gruden did. We're talking about a guy who wasn't the greatest quarterback in, his era. Frankly, he struggled. He had to go to the UFL or USFL for, 3 or 4 years and play with the Gamblers. His time in Tampa, he really struggled.
Well, that was what he was a quarterback of the team that went 0-14.
Yeah,
in Tampa.
Yeah, Tampa had some awful teams that people forget about. I think him and Steve Spurrier are like two of the worst quarterbacks they ever had. People forget about that because it was so long ago. But he worked his way back from all that, became our backup, won a Super Bowl, and that's a huge thing. Then you go and look at his post-playing career. We're talking about a guy who coached for 12 years at Grambling State and one other college. I can't remember. Another historically black college.
I'm going to have all that. So keep talking. I have all that.
Yeah, so here you're talking about a guy who he
but
probably
you're
didn't
but
get,
you're suggesting he's going to be the GM. And I don't think that's the case, right?
Well, I think I don't think the title matters. I think he's going to actually be in charge of the front office, though, in terms of the whole player acquisition side of things. Yes, I do think that this title means he will be in charge. He'll work with.
So
Bruce.
why didn't they just make him the damn GM? Because now I feel like they're going to hire one. I feel like I don't know. I don't. I'm not so confident that he's going to be playing that role.
In his press conference, he said it. He didn't want the title because look what happened to the last guy who had that title so quickly.
I mean, that's fair. Obviously, that's fair.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want it either.
No, I think that plays into it too. I really like that he has this coaching background, this playing background, and a background in front offices for, about a dozen years of each. Like, that's his career. It's like, a 12 to 15-year career as a player, 12-year career as a coach, and I think 12 years as a front office guy. So I think that varied background is going to help him a lot. And like I said, I think people underestimate this. I love guys who have that kind of chip on their shoulder mentality from, things they didn't get done when they were a player or, in some other job. And he still has that.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
All right. I have a lot to say about Doug Williams. First of all, he was the head coach.
Buckle up, everybody.
Yeah, buckle up. First of all, it was Morehouse. He was a head coach at Morehouse for a year.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he spent some time, at Annapolis as the running backs coach. He was in NFL Europe as offensive coordinator for a year.
Yeah. By the
he
way,
was at Southern University.
Before you skip over that, Jay Gruden was a quarterback on that same team when he was the offensive coordinator in 1995 with the Claymores.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Very good.
Today I learned.
Fun fact.
Okay. Now, somebody asked us to do on Twitter, asked us if we could do a breakdown of Doug Williams' scouting ability. Mm-hmm. And we can do that to a certain extent. But first of all, I'd like to address the front office structure. He's not a GM. He's not going to be a GM. And the reason why he's not, what he said in the press conferences, it didn't work. But the truth of the matter is, the real reason is that a GM on a football team essentially has full control over the roster. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now an owner and a team president may get involved for, if you're going to sign Joe Montana or something, they'll get involved to a limited extent. But basically, the GM has authority. Here, Bruce Allen does not want to cede that authority, and so for that reason, you really can't have a GM. We sort of told the public the team sort of told the public that Scott McLuhan was a GM, and then we found out later he really wasn't because he really didn't have full authority.
No,
so
he
Doug
had
is
this
just
identical role, more in title.
right, but
Yeah.
they did right exactly. So we're giving Doug Williams the true title of what he truly is. Now, how it's Brent, he's a manager and a supervisor because all teams have the college scouting room, they have a pro scouting room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alex Santos is Alex is either the pro or scout. He's one or the other, and then they have
he's
somebody
the,
else.
Pro scout.
Okay, he's a pro scout. Then we have a college scout. Those guys report to Doug Williams, and then Doug reports to Bruce Allen. And then when they do the drafting, it's Bruce, Doug, and Jay are the decision makers. That's the structure. But in terms of Doug's, scouting, ability, because there was a quote from I believe Scott McLuhan that sort of doubted Doug's scouting ability out there, and that was hence the reason for the question. So let's go back in the Wayback Machine here. Bruce and Doug Williams were at Tampa Bay at the same time.
Right.
Bruce Allen was at Tampa from 2004 to 2008. Doug Williams was there from 2004 to 2010. He was a personnel executive from 2004 to 2008, and then 2009 and 10 he was the director of pro scouting. Mm-hmm. So, the only way to really tell how good he is let's look at some of the player acquisitions he had while he was there. And that's not to say he's the only decision maker, but it's really the only thing we have to go on. And I'm
sad. I feel like we're leading up to something bad here.
Well, you're very knowledgeable, Sean.
It was not 2 good years for Tampa in general.
Well, I'm talking from 2004 to 2008. If you go, I went through their whole draft history for all those 4 years,
right.
And really and truly, they had 2 picks that were you could consider very quality picks. Was Davin Joseph, the guard. He went to 2 Pro Bowls, played 8 years, and then Aqib Talib was by far their best pick. He's still in the NFL, 4-time Pro Bowler, multiple-time All-Pro. And then they had a guy that's like Will Allen was safety. He's a solid pro. Gaines Adams, tragically died, but he was a good player. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's a whole bunch of junk. And I think that's far worse. Cadillac? Well, I see they drafted Cadillac, but they spent a first-round draft pick on him, and then he busted out of the league. So I don't consider Cadillac to be a good pick personally. You may have a different opinion, Jamal.
Only injuries. I had this argument with somebody on Twitter before. Not over with Bruce and Doug, but just in Cadillac in general. Uh-huh. It was just injuries, but there it goes.
Okay, well that's fair. I mean, you have a different opinion. That's fair. But so then that's draft history. Now, free agency in 2009 and 2010, I attribute the Tampa free agency to him because he was the director of pro scouting. And again, there really wasn't much. They signed Byron Leftwich, the quarterback there. They traded for Kellen Winslow Jr., who ended up being a wreck. And in 2010, they really didn't sign anybody noteworthy, particularly. Right. So that's that's a brief overview of his history. We don't have any knowledge really of who he's kind of championed since he's been here, other than Anthony Lanier, I think was his pick. Now, the other thing I did is I went back and pulled the names of everybody who had been at everybody who was drafted out of Grambling, everybody who's played, everybody who was drafted from Grambling, and everybody who has played in the NFL from Grambling.
Right.
And he was at Grambling from 1998 to 2003, and then he was again the head coach from 2011 to 2013. The big name that came out of Grambling during that time was Larry Donnell, the tight end from the Giants, who, if you guys remember, he was the tight end who caught the ball in his head in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. He slayed us a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big name. A couple other names you guys have probably never heard of. Jason Banks, the defensive end. There was a DB who lasted 1 year, Greg Fassett. Wide receiver, Randy Himes, lasted 3 years. And it goes down from there. In terms of drafted, there was one guy, Scotty Anderson, who was with the Detroit Lions for a long time. So if you go through the Grambling history and then the draft and player free agency history at Tampa Bay, there's not a lot that would suggest that we're going to hit a home run here. I hate to say it because I love Doug like you do, but go ahead.
I don't know if you can look at the draft's history of a division. I mean, it's football champion subdivision that they're in, Grambling State.
Not a lot.
It's right. No.
just last year.
No. I mean, when's the last time anyone came out of Howard?
Antoine Bethea came out of Howard, I believe.
It's been a while.
We know who he is. Safety foot coach mainly. And then just this year, a running back from North Carolina A&T, I want to believe. But my point is, it's very rare that you see a lot of you see players from HBCU go pro. So
right. Those
well,
are
they did
schools.
a thing at they did a thing at the Super Bowl last year of all the big name players who came from historically black universities. Remember, if you guys remember,
I know some came from UMES.
No, I don't
There's a couple
remember
Hall of Famers that came from Maryland Eastern Shore. But this was a while ago when they was actually playing football for at like college divisions. Now it's just recreational.
Yeah, I mean, and Howard doesn't have a history of football at anything, but Grambling and Southern have a history,
That's fair.
And no, I mean,
they're
not
better schools, but they're still they are what they are. I mean,
well, they're not gonna get 5-star recruits, right?
No.
But somebody asked me to break down his history, and so that's about as good as we can do is tell you
now,
the players that were acquired under his.
I will say this though: when he was a head coach, his record is really good. If you look at
very good,
I think he had one bad year in the end where I remember them saying they just had an awful team.
Well, but there was a lot more going on at Grambling at the time. There was all sorts of budgetary problems, and they really screwed him. They really screwed Doug when he left there. I don't think it was a good.
No.
One thing I will say though, I know we're probably about to wrap it up soon, but I do want to acknowledge Alex. I wasn't necessarily pessimistic. I should have waited till you were done, but I wasn't necessarily pessimistic about the hire. It was just more so. And this has been me all off season. It's just wait and see mode. I haven't been one to overreact in terms of I haven't really overreacted. I don't think when Scott was fired. I haven't overreacted when we got Greg Minuski, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just I've been and same thing with Kirk Cousins and all these rumors. I've just been monotone. So it's just a wait and see moment with Doug. Like I said, the main thing is for me is I'm happy for him. So that's the one thing going forward with Doug. We just have to see what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not be? He's been a staple icon of this team for almost my entire life.
And I know the history about him.
Well, he's also been
your guys'
looking
entire life, Sean and
he's
Jamal.
been looking for this chance for years and years and years. So I'm very happy for him. And look, in my opinion, Doug doesn't necessarily have to be a film savant.
No,
he has to have good scouts working
it's a team
for him.
Effort. And that's what a lot of people don't really realize. He has to have a team. I don't know exactly what his team consists of, but we know Scott McClellan, he also had a team as well. It wasn't necessarily his handpicked team that he requested, but he was given a team as well. So this is the thing when it comes to scouting. A lot of people don't want to mention, or not necessarily don't want to mention it, that they at the same time they just don't think about it. They just think about the head person, like he's in charge. He's the one that does everything. No, he has a team as well. So,
I mean, Williams had. I listened to most of his press conference. He had like 7 or 8 times where he was saying things like, "It's not just me who's going to make this happen. It's everybody, because if you don't surround yourself with good people, you're never going to succeed." So he definitely seems to have this idea of a collaborative, team effort to building a good roster.
Well, the other thing about Doug is I think he's going to be a good mentor for some of these young players. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a report coming out of minicamp that he'd been talking to Matt Jones, for quite a while, because who better to mentor players than Doug Williams? He's seen everything, the highs, the lows, everything.
Like I said, he's got that chip, man. He's had his ass kicked by the NFL,
that's
and he came back.
Positive, like a lot of people respect the fact that he's a player, like he's been in the league, he's played as well. A lot of people can relate to him. And speaking of mini camps, he also addressed it like the day he was hired. He addressed the entire team, and a lot of people have positive things to say about him on an interview following that. So it's a lot of things that's going well for Doug right now in terms of his relationship with the players. So it can't get off to a better start for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, our poll question this week was about Doug, right, Steve?
Yes. Our poll question is really front office sort of.
About the front office?
Yeah. Poll question this week. We thought instead of doing a player, poll, let's try to take the temperature of the listening public about the front office changes. So the question was,
the day. So
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the changes to the Redskins front office announced this week? The choices were great moves.
Yeah.
Nothing really changed. It won't work if Bruce Allen is here, and destined for failure. So those are the 4 choices. Let's go with Jamal first this week. Jamal, what do you think the public would think, and what would you vote for?
I don't remember.
Okay, the 4 choices again were the changes were great moves. Nothing's really changed. Won't work if Bruce Allen is here, and destined for failure.
I voted nothing's really changed. But I would assume that majority voted for nothing's going to change with Bruce Allen here. So that's what I would assume they voted for. Yeah, it won't work if Bruce Allen.
Won't work if Bruce Allen here? Okay. Okay. Sean?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid guess. I also, my opinion is nothing really has changed, so I agree with Jamal on that. God, I don't know. I can't decide if people are optimistic or pessimistic about it. I have a feeling that whichever one it is, the opposite is the second biggest number. So, I feel like if people answer that it's a great move, the second biggest group said it was a terrible move. I'm going to guess that people were optimistic. I don't know why. I think people are feeling good. It's the summer. People are positive. They're getting their sunshine. Mm-hmm. People are happy.
Eating their barbecue.
Great moves. That's what I'm guessing. But again, that's not my guess.
I'm going to think. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't be shocked if the total of those 2 negative ones, the anti-Bruce one and the, it's destined to failure, I wouldn't be shocked if that's the number 1 together, but I think you split the negative vote pretty well there, so I'm going to say probably nothing's going to change worked. I'm a little more optimistic. I don't think it's a great move, but, I think it's better than not making any move.
Okay, well, as it turns out, we got to stop letting Jamal have guesses on these things because he gets them right too much.
Piece of shit, Jamal.
Yeah, the voting public by a vote of 61%. 61% of you out there voted for nothing really changed.
Wow.
Yeah. So the overwhelming majority voted for that. A mere 17% was voted for it to be great moves. That was in second place. 16% of you said it's not going to work if Bruce Allen is here. That's we hate Bruce Allen no matter what he does. Man,
right.
The man can date Cindy Crawford and he's wrong. Kind of thing.
I mean, have you seen Cindy Crawford lately? She's washed up.
No, it's okay. We're talking here. We're live. It just comes out of my mouth.
I just want to go on the record and say that to this day, Cindy Crawford is a beautiful woman.
There you go.
Just want to, in case she's listening, guys, because you never know.
And
love you, Cindy.
We'll get her on the show one of these days. How we talk football. And the very, very pessimistic 6% of you out there said this is destined for failure. I don't know how you could. That's so pessimistic. That just surprised me.
I don't get shocked by pessimism.
I know someone like that.
Fan base, I'm actually surprised that number is not over 10%.
Steve, I actually got it wrong then because I had said I made my guess and I said I assumed people would say nothing's going to change or nothing will get better with Bruce Allen. So technically, that's what I said after.
Oh,
so
you're right.
Wrong.
So,
but I mean, if y'all want to give me the W, I'll take it.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Yes,
if you don't mind.
Jamal, no, he finally got an L. We gotta stick with this. He got a fucking L. There you go, Jamal. Take that, asshole.
I gotta be honest, man.
You're like the Patriots. You finally got the loss.
There it is.
By the way, if I had voted, which I didn't vote, I would have probably voted for great moves, just because I think it's we sort of knew what was coming, but I think if we promote Doug to be Williams to be in charge, that's great. So I probably would have voted.
I'm happy for him. I'm happy for those people who think we need more African Americans, in high up positions in front offices, because I kind of agree with that. So
I'm kind of along the lines of let's promote the right person and not worry about their ethnic background. That's kind of where I fall.
Well, this team needs some good PR.
That's true.
Always. But here's what I want to ask you guys. Do you think that with this move, we're going to hire someone who's been we're going to hire a GM and it's going to be someone who's established and done the job, before? Or are we going to hire some new guy because they're not really going to be a full-fledged GM? I guess I'm asking, do you expect to see some talent in our GM hire? Or you expect to see, more or less some scrub maybe getting his first shot?
GM hire?
Yes, I am. You really don't think they're going to hire a GM?
No.
I sure don't. This is it,
Nah,
man.
'cause
Really? At all?
I remember
No.
Doug
I
mentioned
think
this,
that Doug,
Oh,
if anything,
that they hired multiple people under different titles or something like that. So,
The only way that
And he
that's
said
going to
that was-
happen is if Bruce Allen leaves.
I don't even know if at that point there would be. I do think
Wow.
that I'm very interested. I mean, Doug said he wanted to bring in more people, more scouts. So I'm very curious to see what happens there. Like, if we bring in, do you know how much better the scouting department would be if we just brought in like 2 or 3 more good scouts?
Listen, our scouting department isn't bad now.
No,
they've
it's not
had
bad,
some
but
pretty
it's-
good. They've
it's
had some
fairly
pretty
small.
good success. Yeah, but we've had some pretty good drafts.
Yeah.
You know, we've had some pretty
True.
decent free agent signings. You know, recently it's not been a disaster. Like the history of Tampa from 2004 to 2010, that was bad.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Well,
we're not nearly that bad.
But think about what Tampa was at that point. 2004, they just won the Super Bowl. Then they lost all those old guys that they won it with, because it was what, Brad Johnson,
John
Warren
Lynch,
Sapp,
Derrick Brooks,
all those guys
et cetera.
retired. Yeah. There were a bunch of older guys, so they got rid of them all, and they couldn't rebuild. And they never found a quarterback. You know, like, it took them to Jameis Winston
my
to find
point
a
is
quarterback.
that
We're
for
far
those of
from
you
a
who are,
disaster.
yeah, I mean, for those of you who are poo-pooing the scouting department, I would argue that they've done a pretty good job, especially considering the circumstances.
No, I just
Yeah,
think we need a bigger one.
I agree.
want to have the biggest scouting department in the NFL.
Yeah. Well,
Just
tell
a fucking
Dan to pay
army of scouts.
Tell Dan to pay
Yeah.
pay for more of them.
That's what I would do. If I were Doug Williams, that would be the first thing I'd say. I'd say buy more scouts.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'm struggling here. I need football in my life. I hate this part of the year. Are we going to do another fucking position group breakdown, guys?
Well, if you need football, you could always join me in watching the Arena Football League.
I'm going to have to do that. Let's do it, man. We're going to have to just get on Skype and watch this together. I'm struggling. I think we're talking about inside linebackers today, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, we are talking
we
about
are.
inside linebackers today. Y'all ain't
Okay,
excited
great.
about it?
Oh, what's that?
You're not excited about inside linebackers, Sean?
Oh! I thought you said you know what I'm excited about. No, I'm really not that jazzed up for this segment or our inside linebacking core. Go figure. But let's do it.
All right.
Let's do
All
it
right, well,
anyway.
let's start
We've had some
with-
changes.
Yeah, let's start with the guys who are here first. Let's start with Will Compton.
Right.
The Apostle Will Compton. 6'2", 230
Apostle.
pounds, born in Missouri, went to Nebraska, undrafted free agent. He
Book of Compton.
He became a full-time starter last year. I think we all know Compton's limitations. He's not that athletic. He's slow. The coaches really like him because he's very smart, football smart at least. And he's fairly productive. He had 60 tackles and 43 assisted tackles last year. So he's been productive, but we know his limitations,
Right.
Jamal, I know you have strong opinions about Will Compton.
I'm about to say, do I?
Do I?
Yeah, because
Is that what you were gonna say?
I just don't necessarily think. I don't really think that he is a starter per se, but I damn sure think he'll be a hell of a backup, a spot guy for whoever. Inside linebackers, you don't really need a breather, but at the same time, he's definitely capable of playing a good backup role for whoever happens to be hurt. He can be a spot starter. A person who can come in for a couple of games if somebody's hurt. I think he's definitely. He's like Colt McCoy. Like if a quarterback, your starter gets hurt, he's capable of playing a few games and holding the fort down. But in terms of a starter, I don't think he's good enough. It's a 16-game starter. I don't think he's good enough in terms of what he presents. He's not very. I don't think he has the size to really go up against the interior linemen, offensive linemen. To plug the holes, the running lanes for the running backs. He often tries to find ways around them, and he's not quick enough to even do that. So it creates gaping holes to the second and third levels in the defense. So I don't know if that counts as strong feelings for him, but I do think that Mason Foster and Zach Brown is the better, and we're going to talk about them soon. But I do think that's the better starting duo at inside linebacker. I don't think Will Compton is the starter.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think first of all on the size, he certainly only fits a 3-4.
Right.
I don't think he in any way could play a 4-3 inside linebacker. He's just not big enough for that, certainly. I don't disagree with anything you said. I mean, it's a shame you can't put Will Compton's head on Mason Foster's body, and you might have perfect inside linebacker. You want to move on to Mason Foster, or you guys have more to say about him?
I'll just say this.
Yay, Mason Foster.
I still love Will Compton's story as kind of like that undrafted guy who's, kind of built his way up to where he is. I agree. He's not, a playmaker. He's not going to be a Pro Bowler for us, but, I like the story. I think he's a really good guy. If you have a team of guys like that, you're going to be okay. He's got the right mentality at least.
Yeah, I mean, he's smart. He was he was an academic, all Big Ten. He was a team captain in college. His only problem is he's just limited in size and limited in athleticism.
The cerebral part of the game, like you said, he's got that down.
Well, let's talk a little Mason Foster then. Mason Foster's been around a little bit longer. From 2011, he was third-round draft pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a little bit bigger than Will Compton bulk-wise. He's 6'1", 240. He's a little bit shorter, a little bit bulkier. He's from California. He went to the University of Washington. He has been very productive in his time in the NFL. 355 tackles over 6 seasons, 145 assisted tackles. He has a handful of sacks. He has a couple interceptions, 5 interceptions more particularly. I'm a fan of Mason Foster. He's not an uber athletic guy either. He's just bulkier and stronger. I mean, he's pretty slow. He ran a 4.75 40 himself. So
not
neither
great.
one of these guys are going to break any records. But he's bulkier. I think he can take defensive linemen on better than Compton can, just because of his size and strength. So from that respect, he's a better option than Compton. But we don't know how good he's going to be as a play caller. I have no idea.
That's one of the biggest things that people harp on is more so the fact that Compton is the person who's been calling the plays, and that they really like his mindset in terms of his smarts and stuff. But when it comes to inside and a Mike backer, like I understand it's difficult, but at the same time, this is what the offseason is for. Zach Brown is competing. Jay Gruden, obviously, we stated before that this is a competition environment, and he embraces competition. But Zach Brown is competing for the starting role. There's no guarantee that he gets it. And same thing with Mason Foster, and obviously the same thing with Will Compton. Mason Foster's in a position where if you want to get on the field, you have to learn to be able to play smart. Play fast, while being able to, if they ask you to call the plays, you have to be able to do it. John Kine pointed out that Zach Brown, that's not his forte. He's not the person that call plays. He likes to be told in terms of in the huddle what to do, so he can just play fast. That's what he does best. But Mason Foster, if you want to get on the field, and that's who I believe deserves to be on the field. That's why I think should be on the field. Not necessarily deserves it. He'll show it if he deserves it. But that's why I think should be on the field. In terms of what he brings more, Zach Brown and I think Mason Foster can complement each other.
Let me ask this question, because it might sound odd, but why is it that it's always got to be one middle linebacker who's calling the plays versus, let's say, your strong safety or, a free safety? I know you got to have somebody in the middle of the field kind of doing it so they can make adjustments that everyone can hear.
Well, listen, the free safety is too far back.
Sure.
You can't have a free safety calling plays in pointing out protections to the defensive line. That's not going to work. The middle linebacker, number one, the middle linebacker always seems to be the team captain, the defensive captain, and he's always kind of the smartest guy out there, football-wise at least. But you have to have a guy in the box who's going to adjust the defensive line and adjust things like positioning and blitz schemes and all that stuff. You can't have a safety doing it because the safety could be 15 yards behind. You can't hear anything back there.
No, I guess I understand that some of it, but to me, it just never makes sense to me that, to me, ideally, you should be rotating out your linebackers. And with the way they've made the NFL, if you're going to have that green dot on one guy's helmet, he's got to be in there every time.
Right.
So
what's your, I'm not getting your point then. What's your point?
My point is, why wouldn't you at least have the safety or somebody call the play when they're in the huddle, and then you could have the linebacker making adjustments? It doesn't matter.
Listen. If for those of you who play organized football, you kind of know this. The defensive backfield, it's kind of its own little entity. those guys don't always pay a lot of attention to what's going on in the defensive line. They're focused on their world.
Right.
They're focused on their area. When they're in zone, they're focused on, what's their zone. How am I going to interact with the corner? How's the corner going to interact with the safety? It's kind of a separate little entity amongst themselves. The safety isn't the right person to tell to call plays and adjust things for the defensive line or the linebackers.
I think the point he was just making was that the defensive backfield's not always, it doesn't make sense for them to be involved with the play calling because they're totally apart from what happens at the beginning of the play when the ball gets snapped and the front seven there.
Now, I just think that, to me, your front seven are guys who need to rotate out more. That's why it's never quite made sense to me to have a front seven guy who's got to be stuck in there all the time now with the green dot rule. That's the only issue I have.
Well, I don't know, man. I think we're going to see a lot of rotation, though, don't you? I mean, look at the names on this depth chart. I think we've got a solid rotation. I don't think we have many established starters, and that goes for pretty much all the linebackers. I mean,
Sure.
Don't you agree?
Well, we do have one established starter on the linebackers core. We do have one. Zach
Being
Brown.
who, Foster?
No, Zach
Brown? Yeah, from Buffalo.
I don't know if you guys really understand how good Zach Brown is. Zach Brown is the elite athlete out of this bunch. I don't know if you guys realize this. He ran track at North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
He was a star sprinter in high school. This dude ran a 4.28 at North Carolina at one point in time. That was when he was smaller, not as bulky. He ran a that was at North Carolina. He ran a 4.44 at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
So he's 6'1", 244. If you watch film on Zach Brown, he's not a guy who you particularly want to get caught up with in the defensive line, because he can't handle that as well. He's the guy you want on the weak side, kind of playing cleanup, because he uses his speed. He has incredible range. He can track the entire field as long as you can give him space and keep the offensive lineman off him. So Zach Brown is the elite athlete that we're looking for. And he's a Pro Bowler. He was second team All-Pro. This guy is a stud, and we should be excited about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was waiting for an addition in the offseason, and that was the one that came specifically for linebackers, because obviously that was a huge problem last year. I think everybody's excited about it, though. Jamal, I think, made the point earlier that I understand completely what you're saying, but I mean, it's probably still going to be a competition for the position, I would think. It's not like he's coming in entrenched. I don't think he's on quite that level yet, do you?
Zach Brown, I don't know what to tell you. I think Zach Brown is a stud. Zach Brown is the real deal. I don't know why he didn't get a multi-year deal from anybody, but of everybody on the.
See, that might tell you something, don't you think?
Oh, listen. I mean, he was at Tennessee. He was at Buffalo. I'm just telling you if you watch him on film, he's got the range. He has the athletic ability, and he has the athleticism. He has all that. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just really high on Brown. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler last year, and he was a second team All-Pro last year. More importantly, he left Buffalo to get a bigger contract. Not because Buffalo didn't necessarily want him.
So essentially, Brown. The reason why I like Brown a lot is I was clamoring for him since like November of last year. So Brown is the exact type of guy that we need in our front seven. I wouldn't necessarily say I didn't know that back then he wasn't necessarily comfortable playing Mike. So that might have put a damper on some things, and we also thought about we was going to get Reuben Foster and all these type of things. But anyway, we have to do what we have to do with Foster and Compton competing for the role as well. But Foster is the type. Brown is the type of guy who has the speed to go sideline to sideline, and Steve pointed out the things that he was able to do at Carolina. He's also has the strength to play in the trenches. He can take on the backs if need. The interior line if need be. He also has opportunities where he's been successful covering if he has to. So, like I said before, I feel like Foster and Brown can complement each other because Foster's not the best coverage backer. But at the same time, you have a guy in Brown who's capable of doing that, and then also both of those guys are capable blitzers. They're very decent at blitzing, and I think Brown has the speed to do that. I think one of the reasons, and I was going to speak on this. I think one of the reasons why I like Brown as well is the fact that he chose Washington after all the other teams, he felt really wasn't giving him what he wanted, so he decided to come here and prove himself. He said he came here because
Right.
when he was talking about this was last weekend during OTAs, he talked about what about Greg Minuski and what sold him on joining Washington. He mainly said that, and this has been a constant thing, the fact that somebody just called me when I was going to read this quote. He said he said that he likes Minuski's more like Rex and Rob, talking about the Ryans. He likes their aggressive style. He just likes aggressive defenses in general because you don't want to sit back and let them, meaning the offense and the quarterback, check it down all game. He wants you to go get the quarterback, make him feel everything. So for him, it was that's what really got him there, and the fact that they're going to be doing a lot more blitzing and not just staying in coverage all the time. So that's one of the few things that he mentioned in the article I wrote earlier this week. So he just likes the style, and I'm really excited to see him playing this defense if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I totally agree. Houston. Let's move to Houston Bates. He's the next guy. Up 6'1", 245 is an undrafted free agent out of Louisiana Tech. He tore his ACL at the end of last season. He's been active, but hasn't played too much. He has 4 tackles and 1 assisted tackle on a career.
Well, he's on the special teams unit a lot. I know that.
Yeah, right.
He's a teamer.
Yeah, he's coming back from an ACL, so we'll see how it goes. With all these guys, these new linebackers, I think he's got a lot to prove. To stick on the roster. So we'll see. I mean, the advantage he has is he's a little bit bigger, depending on where you look, depending on how he is right now. So we'll see about Houston Bates.
Right.
Martrell Spate, he's the draft pick, 5th-round draft pick in 2015, 6 foot, 232, a little smaller. Didn't play his first year at all. Remember, this is the guy, he had a concussion in maybe the first game, and they IR'd him, which was very odd.
It was a practice or a stash on IR kind of situation, I feel like.
I think so.
Yeah.
Last year he was active, started 1 game, played in 14, 13 tackles, 5 assisted tackles. What do we think about Martrell Spate?
Not a whole lot.
Yeah. No comment.
No comment.
I mean, I
Thanks
think
for your
he
insight.
might get he's going to be the 4th man on this depth chart probably, depending on how everything shakes out. So he's got to, kind of like Bates, he's got to perform on special teams if he wants to start making a name for himself, I feel like.
Exactly,
like
special teams and rotation.
I know from watching him in preseason, he's quick. He's, for his size at least, I feel like.
Yeah, when it comes to Spade, I think we just have to see what the second year, or technically 3rd year for him turns out to be, because his one and only start, he had the defense looking so terrible. And on Monday night against the Panthers, it was very annoying to see. It was frustrating, and he just really looked lost. He was tripping over himself. It was just a bad sight in terms of for somebody to make their debut, and it was kind of bad time because it was crunch time. We really needed a W. So I don't know if it was just the spotlight was too big on him. But at the same time, Spade is a guy who just has to keep contributing in other ways in terms of like special teams and things like that. Because right now,
to be fair to Spade, you're talking about Monday Night
that's
Football
what I'm
against
saying.
defending NSC champs, so it's not exactly
and against one of the more physical.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the
teams in
spotlight might have been too
Right.
big on him. He wasn't like we put him in a position where he had he had no other choice but to perform well, and he just didn't do it. Like it was just a bad situation for him overall. But at the same time, I wouldn't expect somebody to fall on their ass the way he did. Like it was just that bad to me. So like I said, he just has to keep getting these reps, keep studying, getting better, but at the same time contribute in other ways and become still become a major contributor outside of playing inside linebacker right now until he's proven he can do something.
Fair enough. We also signed another guy this year, Chris Carter. This is not Chris Carter from the wide receiver from the Vikings. This is Chris Carter,
That's right.
who is from Fresno State, 6'1", 245. He has bounced around all over the league. bunch of practice squads, a bunch of everything. He's been with the Steelers, the Colts, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Colts again before he came to Redskins. Yeah. Well, we'll see. You know, he started 4 games and played in 62. He has 16 tackles and 10 assisted tackles to his name. This is another guy that's going to have to prove himself on special teams to stick around. Mm-hmm. You know, certainly there is a lot of competition at inside linebacker this year.
If a guy's a special teamer, and you said he's played in 62 games and only had how many tackles?
16.
That's not a good ratio, I feel like.
And 10. Well, that just means hasn't played much. He's been active and hasn't actually played much.
Right, but even if you're on special teams, you should be getting around 1 tackle a game, I feel.
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, if you're good.
Yeah.
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 Well, we'll see. That's Chris Carter. I assume nobody has any incredible words about Chris Carter necessarily. Oh, very good. I'm glad somebody did their research. Go ahead, Jamal.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I knew that was coming. I was like, "There's no way. What could he possibly say?" That was good.
Maybe. Well, you never know. Maybe you ran into the gym or something.
But it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because we know you've run into a couple people at the gym before, Jamal.
That's right.
All right. Well, we have everybody. Next up is everybody's favorite underdog, Nico Marley. Who everybody's kind of rooting for because, who doesn't love Bob Marley and who doesn't love a guy who's 5'8" trying to play linebacker in the NFL. So the combination of undersized and grandson of Bob Marley makes him a fan favorite who's gotten a ton of attention.
Mm-hmm.
The truth
and
of the
probably
matter is,
also makes him a terrible football player, I would assume.
Well, you know what? He's not a terrible football player, though. If you watch him at Tulane and look at what he did at Tulane, the thing is he's just undersized and not quite fast enough. That's his deal.
And he
was very productive.
The one problem is he's not fast enough
pretty
to
bad
be
for
a
the
strong
NFL.
safety, really.
But
no, he's not. He was very productive at Tulane, though. He had 319 tackles, started every game.
Mm-hmm.
Barely missed any time at all for injuries. He was highly productive. He's a motor. He could be the ultimate special teamer.
Yeah, that's what I want to see from him.
We did have in the past was a linebacker being converted to fullback. And Darrell Young, I'm speaking of. If things don't work out, they may have, future. I'm not saying because clearly we've shown we don't really use a fullback, but at the same time, that's also a move that can be stashed in their back pocket. Just need be if they don't feel like his size fits linebacker, but they really want him on the roster.
I feel like there's a way to move him around. Yeah.
Well, and listen, they moved Sua Craven out of the linebacker position.
Yeah.
Sort of the fifth linebacker job and into safety. Maybe Marley's the type of guy who he can develop into a couple years into being that, nickel linebacker position.
Well, and I don't think he'll ever get any taller. He's always going to be a short guy. But if he could...
He's not going to grow. No, odds are he's not going to grow.
But he could always bulk up. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like the NFL doesn't have a bunch of professionals.
It depends on his frame.
Yeah.
You can't bulk up too much, depending on how you look, how your frame is built.
I'm sure he could probably add 10 pounds or something, be a little closer to that linebacker size.
I know you said he's 5'8".
Oh, well, yeah. SportsReference.com had him listed at 200 pounds.
He's only 200 pounds.
Yeah,
he's small, and I've seen it other places even lower than that. I mean, we might...
No, he'd be a running back.
We might be giving him a little too much credit for a guy who went undrafted, right, and is a second-string inside linebacker on the Redskins.
This is like I said. He has a confluence of circumstances that makes everybody root for him.
Yeah.
There isn't anybody out there who, unless you're just an evil person, doesn't love Bob Marley. And so you have Bob Marley's grandson. Then you have a kid who's 5'8", 200 pounds trying to play linebacker.
That's probably what got him on the 90-man roster right now.
Who doesn't love that story?
That he has some lineage, and they love his effort. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I did not see this. I did not see this man making a roster.
He could if he's an effort guy.
Maybe he could switch to cornerback.
Teamer.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's got to focus on.
What was his 40
fast
time?
enough. He's not nearly fast enough for that. I don't have it right here in front of me, but I think he ran something like along the lines of 4.7, 4.8, 40.
Yeah.
So I mean,
what
that's
are we
not.
Gonna do with Nico?
I don't know. You know what we're gonna do?
That's the
We're
best
gonna
bet.
move on.
Yeah.
That's Nico Marley.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. The
Good
last
luck,
guy.
Nico.
Finally, we're done with this. Pete Robertson from Texas Tech, 6'3", 240 pounds, 2011. Well, he was at Texas Tech from 2011 to 2015. He started out as a DB, believe it or not, the world's tallest and biggest defensive back, and ended up as a linebacker. You know, he's another guy who's got a long road to hoe to make the roster. I'm going to just take a random assumption here and assume that nobody has a lot to say about Pete Robertson.
Nope.
Other than what I just said.
Yeah.
What? No sermons about Robertson, guys?
No. He doesn't have a famous grandfather, or a parent who was a singer or anything like that. So
Yeah,
he's
good
just
Good
Pete
luck, bro.
Robertson.
Well, I heard
that's
there
all I
was
got
a
for
song
you,
about
Pete.
his mother, Mrs. Robinson. That's about it.
That's what. No, his name is Robertson,
Oh, Robertson.
not
Damn
Mrs.
it.
Robinson.
Oh,
Yeah.
well. That's how much he matters.
And see,
Yeah.
if you're under about 35, you're not going to get the reference. I got it, but I'm guessing that Sean and
Well,
Jamal.
sir, you are
probably
1
went
for
over
1
their head.
today.
What?
Oh, come
The
on.
Mrs. Robinson. Yeah, the Mrs. Robinson reference probably.
I know about the Garfunkel.
Yeah.
There
Come
you
on.
go. Okay.
Come on, guys.
I did not get
Jamal
it.
didn't.
Come on.
That's all right.
So, you don't jam out to Simon and Garfunkel, dude? You're missing out.
No,
you
you're
are
not.
missing out, bro. No, you're not.
No.
Okay, well, that was a long journey through our inside linebackers. A little bleak coming out of that conversation, guys. Not feeling so strong about it, but hey,
Zach
it seems
Brown,
like we've got
Nathan Foster, there's some talent.
we've got some talent, but mostly, championship. We've got mostly, I feel like, rotational guys, solid rotational guys. But I don't know. I think we'll have to see. So,
Well-
hey, good luck to everybody there.
Well, I guess the
Go ahead.
real thing about the inside linebackers that was interesting today or this week was the whole Sewell Craven's interview about trying to learn inside linebacker last year.
Let's hear it. Alex. Go lay it on us. What's
Well,
Sue
I
Craven
think
say?
I don't have any of the exact quotes, but more or less he said it was a waste of his time to try and learn linebacker. To put it mildly, he was not happy with that whole last year and playing out of position. He doesn't think he's a linebacker at all, and he has no idea what the team was doing. I think that kind of summarizes the whole interview nicely. It was
Fair
a
enough,
pretty
Sua.
good indictment of Joe Barry and the defensive staff
Well,
last year.
the one thing I had with that, and I don't want to be put in a position where it seems like I'm defending Barry, but I kind of really was really annoyed by what Sue said, mainly because he said he felt it was a waste of time. He don't know why he was there, but Joe Barry, when he put him there, stated, I can't remember verbatim what he was going to say. I mean, what he said, but he stated verbatim the reasons why Sue will be moved to inside linebacker. And one of the reasons that I do remember is that he needed to learn the defense inside out. So that interview or the conversation with Mike Jones, he states he doesn't know why he was there. He doesn't know. He thought it was a waste of time. But then he later says, after he said that, he later says, now I understand route combinations a little bit better. I know what the defensive line is doing. All these type of things that you learned at inside linebacker. So if it was a waste of time, then you really didn't learn anything. But you said you picked up on things that you learned. I really didn't understand what he was trying to say. It was annoying to read it.
All right. Well, I have the quote. This is courtesy of Burgundy Blog. The quote is, "I don't like playing linebacker. I'll play it if I have to. I don't think I can play linebacker, but safety is definitely my position." And when asked about his comfort level, he, now that he spent the past 4 weeks practicing at safety, Cravens declares, "It was always second nature. I don't know why I was ever moved to linebacker. Now I'm playing safety, so I'm ready for a big season this year." I hear, Sua is a young player. He doesn't need to be criticizing the coaching staff. He needs to have a positive attitude. I get it.
Sure.
I never really understood why they moved in linebacker either, to be perfectly honest. Does he have the athleticism to be a free safety? No, I think he's kind of a true strong safety, if
Right.
you ask me. And to me, I mean, I get the idea that maybe he can learn the defense better if he's a linebacker. But to me, I think you start him at the position you're going to keep him at. I don't know why you'd have him at another position for a year and then move him. That makes less sense to
I mean,
me.
maybe
But
they
I mean,
just
I'm no
figured
coach,
he was too
so
fragile
I,
because
you
they
know,
had
I get where he's coming
again
from.
when we drafted him, they had visions of Deion Buchanan. You know, the hybrid linebacker. So maybe they just figured he was too fragile because he did prove to be hurt a few times. But Deion is not the type of person. The guy from the Arizona Cardinals, he's not the type of person that that's shown to be nicked up
Right.
constantly playing that backer role. However, Sua, he's the type of person who's been nicked up a few times, even ended in a concussion one of those games. So, yeah, he may be just too frail to play in the trenches 24/7. So yeah,
Well, yeah, not only that, but if I recall, his teammates were, and the public was
too.
sort of trying to question
That too.
him at the end of the year whether he was really why he was out and why he wasn't playing. When
I
he
think
had
it
what
was
was
a
it, a
shoulder-
hamstring? I can't remember what the
something
injury
like that.
was. It was like a
Yeah.
So we'll see. Sue's got a lot to prove. He was a second round pick last year. He's got a lot to prove, and he's got to prove that he can be a key contributor and a starter
Yeah.
on this defense. So we'll see. So that was Sue Cravens. I agree with his point. I don't agree with the way he said it, and I don't agree with the bad attitude. But I agree with that point.
How he worded it,
Yeah.
it's just like don't say you didn't learn anything. You don't know why you said it.
Right.
Well,
Well, it's like it's one thing
for
if,
him
like,
to say,
you
I
know,
didn't learn anything, to me is the indictment of the, or like for him not to say he didn't learn anything, because clearly he probably learned something, but for him to say he didn't understand why it was done, it's been a year. It should have easily been explained to him. This will help you develop XYZ traits. Like.
Well, you know who he reminds me of? You guys remember the old movie Any Given Sunday with Al Pacino, the football movie?
Yeah.
There's one scene in there in which Jamie Foxx is the star quarterback, and he's talking to Al Pacino at one point, and he says, they moved me to cornerback at one point. I don't do that. I didn't learn anything. I don't understand that. And he was making a bigger point, but that's kind of what Sue was saying. I'm not a linebacker. I don't know why they moved me there. What Sue needs to do is just shut up and do what the coaches tell him. It's one thing if, like, a veteran, like, say, Trent Williams, may speak out in a measured way about the coaching staff. It's all another thing for a rookie to do
tackles,
it.
5 interceptions, and a couple forced fumbles from Sua this year.
If he's a key starter and he stays at strong safety the entire time,
In
he could do
16
that.
games-
Well, I don't know
That's
about
not
the
an unreasonable-
interceptions might
if
be
he
a
can
little
get
tough.
5 in the box, hey, hell, more power to him, man. More power to him. I'm just shooting.
Yeah.
I'm shooting
All right.
high,
Yeah.
and I'm accepting anything a little bit lower than that. That's all I'm doing. Just a little bit lower.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So do we have? He wasn't the only guy that made some comments this past week, right? We had Kirk Cousins coming out and saying some things to the media as well, did we not?
Yeah, Kirk Cousins came out and said how much
I
he
heard
hates the
that.
Redskins. He hope
well,
he.
now I
No,
can't
that's
go
not what
with
he
Steve.
said.
Yeah.
No, he didn't say.
I've always read between the lines and heard that with Kirk Cousins.
This is courtesy of J.P. Finley at CSN Atlantic. I'm not going to read the whole quote because it's super long. But the money part of this quote here is that he's talking about Eric Schaefer. He says, so yes, Eric has a big role. There are people above him who have bigger roles, and that's why their titles are president and head coach and so on. So it's a team effort making decisions, and Eric certainly has a voice in that, a big voice. And what Cousins was saying was he loves Eric Schaefer. He thinks a lot of Eric Schaefer, but Eric Schaefer has bosses.
Right.
And if you read between the lines, it's, I like Eric Schaefer, but I'm not so wild about his bosses. Now, he threw head coach in there. I find it hard to believe that Kirk Cousins is really trying to say he doesn't like Jay Gruden because Jay's the one that gave him a shot. Jay stood on the table for him. I don't understand where that's coming from if that's what he was implying with that quote. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a good
and
question. I don't either.
don't think that Jay Gruden would ever be considered Eric Schaefer's boss in any way of the hierarchy.
No, but that's what Kirk was saying.
Yeah.
That's the point he's making. Yeah, I see what you
Yeah.
mean, Steve.
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems like kind of a weird comment, too,
Yeah.
frankly. It seems a little out of left field. But honestly, the more time I hear, the more stuff I hear from Kirk, the more it just seems like, I don't know. I have a problem with him sometimes, and this is a great example of why. I just don't quite understand where Kirk is coming from sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other part of
and
that.
this is just another example. Yeah.
Yeah, if you really want the other half of this, he's talking about Mike McCarthy. He says, I hired Mike McCarthy because I trust him to do the job, and I feel like he's done a very good job all the way along. And while things He's told me I haven't always liked to hear, or they haven't always been easy to act on. He's always been right as I look back. So I have great trust in his counsel and his approach, and I'll definitely be leaning on him as we go forward all the way through it. Now, the implication with the Kirk Cousins contract talks is that Mike McCarthy's put too much pressure on the Redskins. He has too high expectations, and he's not really willing to compromise, and that's sort of why the Redskins haven't compromised. We're not in the room, so we don't know. But if that's true, then Cousins is backing his agent, and that doesn't lend itself well to there's going to be a compromise in the future. I would just, like I've said all along, you'd be shocked at how many unsolvable problems get solved in the business world at the deadline. So have faith, everybody. I'm convinced that this deal is going to get done.
I'm starting to think. I'm starting to think it'll get done. Well, I'm not starting to. I've been thinking like this for maybe a few weeks now. But as I stated earlier in the show, and I hold true to this, so I'm sorry I don't have much input, but we'll see. We'll just see. We'll see. But I do think I'm leaning more so towards a deal gets done.
Well, the other thing that interesting that happened with Cousins is the radio deal.
Yeah.
Dan Steinberg put a column out on Sportsblog this week. Cousins re-signed with 106.7 to do his Monday radio spot with Grant and Danny, our friends Danny Rudy.
Yeah.
And Steinberg's, snarky point in it was, a radio station backed Kirk Cousins back when he wasn't even really playing, and, they showed loyalty to him. And so Cousins showed loyalty back by signing an under-market deal with 106.7 instead of jumping to 980 for a lot more money. And, I don't have a column in front of me, but Steinberg's money quota out of it was, could we learn something about Kirk Cousins from this? Implying that maybe the Redskins should have showed him loyalty early on and we wouldn't have been here. So read Steinberg's column.
Yeah, and he's probably right. I mean, I think Kirk doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who, he's all about the money. I think his agent is, and his agent should be, like you've said many times, Steve. But, and let's be honest, though, these radio spots, the kind of money we're talking about is nothing compared to...
It's chump change.
To a $100 million contract.
It's not chump change to us. It's chump change to an NFL quarterback.
Yeah. It would probably pay for me getting a new car, but,
I got to say about Kirk, I think he's a little bit emotionally frail, guys. And I think this, at the beginning of his career, it wasn't a little bit, it was a lot. He would throw an interception and he would sit there and pout, so this is not like coming out of left field. He's gotten better in that regard, but I think this is just a good example. I think, he can have his feelings hurt. And he's not like the toughest dude, the most emotionally, he doesn't have the best emotional fortitude there. Sure. I think he can be a little frail, a little weak, thin-skinned, and he wants to be praised. I think he wants to be praised, and that's what he's looking for, and so that's why he'll take the deal, with 106.7, because he wants to be coddled a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I don't think, I'm on the signed Kirk Cousins train now, but I don't think the guy is going to be a Hall of Famer. I just think it's best for the team. Right. Is he the best guy out there? No. Is he a top 5 quarterback? No. Is he even a top 10 quarterback? Maybe. Statistically, he's up there, right. But it's, we've had this talk. You may be right. I mean, he is a little fragile. I think there's certainly, but the Redskins. But you take that when you're negotiating a business deal. You take that into account.
Sure.
Smart negotiators do at least.
Well,
that's right. I mean, no, you're totally right.
Like we've said, we'll see what really happens. The one thing that I'm not clear on in this whole situation at this point really is just what is Kirk's agent's relationship with the team in all this.
Doesn't sound like it's very good.
Yeah, it doesn't. To me, it sounds like he's almost pushing Kirk to leave for free agency at this point. But
he's just pushing Kirk to get the most money.
Yeah,
he wants Kirk to get the other. He wants another 1-year deal, exclusive franchise tag. That's probably what he's going for, and he's trying to make it as contentious as possible.
No matter what happens, the Redskins should not do that.
I agree with you.
But they say they might.
Yeah, but I just think that's just stupidity.
I could see the transition tag. I don't want to see a franchise tag again.
I don't even want the transition tag because, the transition tag, the contract that I set up, a couple months ago and all that, it doesn't work. If they put them on the transition tag for $28 million, that doesn't work at all, and the numbers go way up for the contract. It doesn't work. Does not work. Listen, Bruce Allen, does not work. You have to sign him this year. Have to, in my opinion.
We'll see.
I don't disagree, man. I can see them doing it. That's all I'm saying. Can't you see them doing it? You might not want it.
Yeah.
But
no,
you can see
yeah.
it.
Could they be dumb
Clear
enough
as
to do
day.
it? Could they be stupid enough to do it? Yes. Should they? No.
Well, I think if they, I think if they don't get it done, Kirk is probably gone next year. I don't think that any contract happens.
Well, what's the point of franchising a quarterback for a third
Nothing.
year anyway? I don't
There's
get
no
it.
point.
I mean, just find a new. If you don't want to pay him, get rid of him, and let's find a new one to draft somebody next year.
Draft someone,
you know?
maybe
Let's
see if Teddy Bridgewater's arm will still work.
Yeah, or somebody it's anybody, but it just don't keep
Playing this game.
Let's not keep doing this. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
I couldn't agree more. Seems like we're in this boat every year at this same point.
Because
But
we have
anyways,
been for 2 years.
as we have been, yeah, deja vu, third time in a row. Well, that's we could let the good folks at home go at this point. And you guys got anything else and anything new happening in Redskins world that we missed talking about today?
I don't think so. I think we've covered this week's news fairly well.
Well, little
Don't-
thing.
you got-
did
don't
you see the new Hogs 2.0 shirt that Kirk was wearing at the
Oh yeah.
presser?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Better
That's
shirt.
right.
Much.
Well, and it also was not Hogs Haven's logo anymore.
Yeah,
Did
they
you see
stole.
that?
They did not steal somebody's logo this year. But I do want to say I have an
Good
issue
for
with
them.
the quarterback wearing the shirt of the offensive line.
Do you not know the name Joe Theismann?
Yeah, I know.
Joe Theismann, for those of you youngins out there who don't remember this, Joe Theismann was begging to be in the Hogs.
And they said no.
begging.
It was a bigger deal then.
Yeah, and they said as they should have.
Right. Yeah, he kept on wanting to go into the. It was a shed, right? That they would all
It was a
drink
storage
in.
shed.
He kept
Yeah.
on wanting to go drink beers in the shed with him. And they kept on telling him no.
And then he wanted to be an honorary Hog, and they wouldn't let him even be an honorary Hog.
Reagan's got to be an honorary Hog.
Yeah. So
That's right.
Kirk Cousins wearing a Hog shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I tweeted it at Joe Jacoby and said you would never allow this, and he never replied. But
He was with you in spirit,
yeah,
though.
I think so.
He agrees. All right, well, hell, we'll let the people get back to their lives at this point. Hopefully you enjoyed the show, taking you through all the latest and greatest in the Redskins world. Not much going on at this point in the season, folks, but hang in there, as we are fast approaching real football again. We're getting there. So we will see you next time.
Peace.
Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
Later.
Later.